Barry Bryson here, thanking you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. And we're in Mark chapter 9 today, and I'm going to make good on my promise of our last session and finish chapter 9. Let's read verses 41 through 50. Whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because of your name as followers of Christ, truly I say to you, shall not lose his reward. And whoever causes one of these little ones who believes to stumble, it would be better for him if a heavy millstone hung around his neck, he had been cast into the sea. And if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off, for it is better for you to enter life crippled than to have your 2 hands and go into hell and unquenchable fire. And if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame than having your 2 feet to be cast into hell. And if your eye causes you to stumble, cast it out, for it is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. For everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good, but if the salt becomes unsalty, with what will you make it salty again? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another. Okay, my mother periodically, and since my teenage years, has come to me and said, Barry, where's that verse that says, to him who knows to do good and does it not, it would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and he be thrown into the sea. Well, that verse does not exist, Mom. You are splicing together this passage with James chapter 4, verse 17. But, you know, the splicing together of verses is something that Jesus himself does today. Because he's quoting from Isaiah, from the very last chapter of Isaiah, the part that describes eternal hell. And he's got this quote where the worm doesn't die and the fire is not quenched. And in some of your versions, that is repeated in verses 4, 6, and 8. And then some verses leave it out because of textual variance and only have it in verse 48. But he is splicing together some things he's already said in the Sermon on the Mount with the passage from Isaiah. We also see Jesus repurposing good metaphors and good images and expanding them as well. Preachers do that. If you've got a good story that has multiple applications, you use it multiple ways. You have a good metaphor that can be applied a variety of ways, and in an expansive way you do it. And that's what Jesus has done here. He talks about giving us a cup of water to drink. They will be rewarded. This was, even the poorest person who had absolutely nothing could offer this level of hospitality. It's giving what you can, because it is needed, and just the valuing of that above all other responses that Jesus sets forth in verse 41. Little ones, what little ones is he talking about? Well, he's got a kid in his arms, you know, he's still talking. He hugged up a child, and I think he primarily is talking about someone who imprints falsehood and anger and hatefulness and all those things on a child's heart when a child is forming his person and his personality. And he says, if you do that to a small child, it would be better for you that a millstone be hung around your neck and you be thrown into the sea. This is a passage about judgment and about the fear of judgment. And he goes back to the scariest Old Testament passage of judgment, you know, where we're in a burning hell and being eaten by worms at the end of Isaiah, at the end of the book of Isaiah, to evoke what will happen to us. And he uses the word Gehenna for hell, the perpetually burning sewer and garbage dump just outside the city walls of Jerusalem. And that's what he uses to describe what hell will be like. And then he says, whatever is causing you to sin, that persistent temptation in your life, whatever it is, you get rid of it. You axe it off and throw it away. You get rid of it. Because if you don't throw it into the trash heap, you're going to be thrown into the trash heap. And he couldn't use more severe language. Cut off your hands, chop off your feet, pull out your own eyes if they're the source of your persistent sin. It would be better for you to do that than to be lost eternally. And then he says, verse 49, everyone will be salted with fire. Everyone will be salted with fire. That's interesting. What does he mean by that? Salt is used also in the Sermon on the Mount, and in fact, he uses the language that he uses in the Sermon on the Mount about making our light shine. But here he's talking about a variety of ways salt is used, seasoning. In fact, he'll talk about, the New Testament talks about our speech being seasoned with salt. Have salt in yourselves, seasoning and that which preserves life and prevents spoiling and decay. Have salt in yourselves and be at peace, be in right relationship with each other. But everyone will be salted with fire. What does that mean? Yeah, I don't know, and it probably has an expansive meaning. Salt as preservation, as purifying agent, because it was used as both things in the ancient world, and purified by fire, preserved by fire. It's also interesting that in Leviticus chapter 2, verse 13, all grain offerings, when they're offered up to the Lord, are salted and then burnt. And so they have to be salted to be a right sacrifice before God. And so maybe the whole notion of sanctification, of the salt making the sacrifice holy so that it can be offered up to God, is there. It's enigmatic for a reason, because Jesus wants us to think about it. And we have thought about it today. Well, thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes. Tomorrow, or next time that we're together, I've lost track of my days because I've added classes, you see. We're going to be talking about chapter 10, verses 1 through 12, and Jesus' teaching on divorce. Won't that be exciting? We'll see you next time.